There were two decisions made in Washington, D.C. this week with ties to agriculture in Nebraska. On Tuesday, President Barack Obama vetoed a federal bill related to the construction of the Keystone XL Pipeline. That same day, the U.S. Supreme Court decided a case between Kansas and Nebraska. As we told you in October, the Supreme Court heard arguments between the states over use of water from the Republican River. On Thursday morning, we spoke with Nebraska Extension Water and Ag Law Specialist Dave Aiken to hear how those two decisions impact Nebraska producers. We first asked Dave to recap the case before the Supreme Court over the Republican River.
Well, this stems from when Nebraska overused water on the Republican Basin in 2005 and 2006. Kansas protested, and it ultimately got referred to a federal judge called the Special Master, and the special judge awarded Kansas $5.5 million, and both states appealed to the Supreme Court.
Why did both states appeal?
Well, Kansas appealed because it wanted a lot more money, at least double what it ended up with. And Kansas also wanted to shut down irrigation on about over 500,000 acres in Nebraska.
In Nebraska?
Well, you know, we did pretty well as far as the Special Master's report was concerned. So we were pretty happy, but we argued that the $1.8 million extra damages that were awarded over the actual damages was illegal. And we also argued that we should get credit for the Platte River groundwater that comes into the Republican Basin as being out-of-basin water.
Okay, so the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court rules this week. What do they say?
Well, they confirmed what the Special Master did in every regard. Kansas got the $5.5 million, including the $1.8 that we argued about, and also Nebraska will get credit for the Platte River groundwater that comes into the Republican Basin as being not Republican Basin water.
Why did Nebraska have to pay Kansas?
Well, as the Supreme Court noted in its opinion, originally the Nebraska groundwater regulations were okay in normal years, but they weren't tough enough in dry years. And but in 2006, Nebraska started to develop special dry years plans that would keep us in compliance, and that made all the difference.
So that goes a long way, but what are those plans?
Well, basically the NRDs made the very tough decision with the Nebraska Department of Water Resources that they would shut off irrigation wells close to the river, and this would be about 110,000 acres, and shut those off in dry years. And then the computer model showed that that would have kept us in compliance in 2005 and 2006.
Do you think Nebraska and therefore farmers will have to shut off wells in the future?
I don't think so. This is the last thing that anybody wants, and the NRDs have developed the Lincoln County project to pump groundwater from Lincoln County into the Republican River when the water is down, and if we do that enough, then that'll keep us out of the dry year program, and so we should be good.
As people in that area are very familiar, this has been going on for a long time. Is there a point where Nebraska and Kansas start to get along on this issue?
I think we finally got there. Very recently, with regards to this Lincoln County groundwater, Kansas agreed to give Nebraska 100% credit for all the groundwater that pumped in, even though it could have said Nebraska only gets credit for half of it. And so that was a big win for Nebraska, something Kansas didn't have to do, but they did. And so, I think it was rocky at the beginning, but now we're where we could be, and I think it's going to be good. Who
gets the credit for that? I mean, how did it happen?
The NRDs and the Department of Water Resources worked real hard to get us to this point, and so a tip of the hat to them.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Earlier this week, President Obama vetoed the Keystone XL Pipeline bill. Tell me what that means.
Well, the federal legislation deals with whether or not the environmental permit is issued for the pipeline project, and that is completely separate from whether or not they, TransCanada can condemn land for the right-of-way in Nebraska. Those are kind of two separate issues. The condemnation has been tied up in court again, so it's kind of two separate tracks, and we'll just see where it ends up.
What impact does the veto and then potentially the veto override? What impact does that have on Nebraska?
Nothing. It doesn't change a thing in Nebraska. The only thing that would change it would be if President Obama said no to the project, absolutely, then they wouldn't need to condemn a pipeline because there's no pipeline to build.
Regarding the Keystone XL Pipeline veto, multiple reports indicate a veto override vote could take place next week.